Hi, I'm Michelle Chalfant, psychotherapist, holistic life coach, and human just like you, learning to navigate life's challenges. With over 25 years experience, I teach people how to get healthy using the adult chair model. The adult chair model is where simple psychology meets grounded spirituality, and it teaches us how to become healthy adults. From anxiety and depression to codependency and relationship issues, you can use the adult chair for just about anything. Each week, I share practical tips, tools, and advice from myself and a wide range of experts on how to get unstuck, how to live authentically, and how to truly love yourself, all while sitting in your adult chair. Welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast. I am Michelle Chalfant, here with you today with not only myself, but my husband, Graham. I did a little sneak attack on him because we were doing our weekly, we try to do weekly. We're not perfect, but our goal is at least weekly. And sometimes we even do it in midweek. But you've probably heard me talk about our coffee chat, or just our, I should say, morning beverage chat, because I'm really into mud water right now. I love that stuff. He does coffee. Anyway, we sit, but it's while we sit in the morning, we usually do it on a weekend morning, we sit and we have conversations about all the things that have come up in the last week and we typically are in the conversation of how do we deepen the connection in our relationship. So we were having this great conversation. I'm like, this is really good. I wonder if other people would want to listen in to our intimate little chat we're having. So I didn't know if I was going to use it, but I ended up recording it. And then in the end, I was like, this is good stuff right here. So I hope you guys agree. But here's what we chatted about. We talked about really building a ritual of connection in our relationship, because I'm not sure about all of you, but I'm thinking most of us want to go deeper in our relationship and, build that stronger connection. We talked about how to create more safety in your relationship so you can become more vulnerable, so you can drop in deeper and connect deeply with the person that you are in a relationship with. We talked about really how to build up your ability to share emotions and how can you encourage your partner to share their emotions more. So, of course, this is a female to male perspective, and it was a wonderful conversation. So you all might want to share this to your significant other if it resonates with you. And we also even talked about the power of masterful listening and responding instead of reacting, which we talk a lot about, of course, in the Adult Chair Workshop as well as in certification. Masterful listening is something that we do when we live in our healthy adult self. What that means is you don't react, you sit, and you really listen with this beautiful grounded presence. So we talked about that. We talked about a lot of things. So I hit record and here it is for you all. And I just want to ask you all before we jump in, if you're enjoying the show, and I think you are if you're here with me today, and I so appreciate and value every single one of you. I just really enjoy having the opportunity to even do this with you all. It brings me a lot of joy. Before I jump into the show, I just want to ask you all, if you would, please head on over to wherever you're listening to the show and leave us a 5-star review. I would love to hear from you. I love to read all of the reviews. In fact, this morning, I was just reading a bunch of them in Apple. It really warms my heart and honestly keeps me going. And I love hearing how you feel about the show. So head on over to wherever you listen and drop a 5-star review. All right, here we go with the conversation with Mr. Graham Chalfant and myself. Welcome to the intimate details of our coffee chat. Here we go.
Hi, this is Michelle Chalfant, therapist, life coach, and human, just like you.
No, just like, Hello, everybody. I'm here with my smart, husband.
Who is a human.
Just like you, Graham Chalfant. We're having a really lovely conversation during our coffee chat this morning. We just posted a video on social media about connection and the importance of connecting. We started talking more about it during our coffee chat time. And I thought, this is really good. Like I want to put this out there, what we're talking about.
And this is a life that I lead with the woman that we start talking, and out comes the iPhone to record a podcast. Welcome to my world, people.
I do a sneak attack where if I really like what someone's talking about, I have a tendency to pull out my iPhone and start recording.
So be careful if you're around Michelle Chalfant. You may get recorded on a podcast.
It's true. But this was a great conversation that we were just having. And I feel like I'd like to share with people the power of connection, the power of connecting. It's not just connection, actually, that's not the right word. It's the power of connecting. Would you say that's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, just probably spending time with people you're in a relationship with to sit and be intentional, and doesn't have to be anything crazy or long, but just on a regular basis, kind of making it a ritual.
Yeah, because we live in such a busy world, especially I know in the United States. We're just busy over here. And I admire people in other countries that actually take time and honor the vacation times and the downtime. But I know even in our lives, I joke about how we live in the same house. We both work at home and we hardly see each other. Like we work from home and we do not see each other during the day. It's kind of crazy, right? So we have intentional time that we set aside. Definitely on the weekends, we do something called our coffee chat time. And that means you have a beverage of choice, because sometimes mine is mud water or tea or coffee. But
mine is always coffee.
Yours is always coffee. And we sit, but we have an intentional time. We'll say, would you like to do our coffee chat today? And we'll sit and we will just connect. So let's talk about what does that look like when we do our coffee chat times? Because this is so important. And it's not just talking about random, although sometimes you do talk about random, but what else? What else do we do during this time?
Well, I'll tell you from a guy's perspective that I prefer it to start easy and light. So Michelle's a little bit deeper and a little more intense sometimes. I think she'd prefer to immediately jump into the toughest conversations we have. For the women out there listening, I would say if you're with a man, to go slow. One thing I learned in a men's group was we would start out by asking 2 words that describe how you're feeling at the moment. So again, to ask me, Graham, how are you feeling, is not the best thing for me. That's too open-ended of a question. But if you ask me, what are 2 words right now that you're feeling, I can do that. And usually then it makes me be intentional and think about how I'm feeling. And it also leads to a little bit of a conversation, because if I've got a little anxiety, then what's behind the anxiety? Is it something Michelle's done? Is it something about my day coming up, my job? But it's easier to start with a couple words, 2 words. Michelle today gave 3 words, even though the instructions were 2. So, but sometimes when we do this in this men's group, 2 words, one of the words may be 3 words long. So it's just a little brief description of kind of how you're feeling. But it's always interesting, because when you sit there for a moment, you don't even realize what you're thinking. But when you actually have to come up with 2 words or 3 words or 4 words, it makes you kind of go inside. But for me, at least, it leads to a nice conversation, because you start talking about why you're feeling that way and what's going on. And I think that alone is huge for couples to have moments like that of just, I think we probably should do it daily, just checking in real quick, what are 2 words? How are you feeling today? So that would be my suggestion, is that the ritual of getting together and connecting would be starting out with a couple words. And then something else I learned from a podcast or somebody, which we're not doing enough, but I like, which is at least weekly check in and say, how'd things go last week? And so you tell the person, I really appreciated when you did this. I appreciated when you did that. I liked this. And then after you've come up with a few positives, as opposed to saying, I didn't like this, say, it would have been better maybe if you could have done this. So you offer words of improvement. From a man's perspective, my perspective, being told that you've done something well is really helpful in a relationship. And being coached on how you could do something better is super helpful too. So that might be a good once a week check-in, just again, what went well the past week and what could have been improved upon. And I'm doing all the talking in this. That's weird.
I know. You're suddenly oral, which that's not really you. I like it though. I'm listening. I'm like, this is good stuff. Good stuff, Chalfant. I like it. And you said a couple of things that I wanted to touch on. One of them was you said something like when you check in with yourself, it causes you to kind of drop in your body. I don't know that you use those words, but that's the visual I got. And it's true because if you ask someone, how are you feeling or what's going on? It's like you don't just want to give them mental, although you can, but drop inside. And what I say, or what I call like dropping below the chin, get curious about what's going on in the body. And would you say that you're learning how to do that? And I know that even as a female, many females that I've worked with over the course of 25 years, it's difficult. Many people have looked at me and said, what do you mean check in with my body? That's where our emotions are. Like, let's get clear on what we're feeling. And that's something you had to learn, right? Like you went through a process of really learning through doing some somatic work. Can you explain to people?
Well, let's be clear. Let's not fool anyone. I'm not great at this at all. And like I said, don't think that we're sitting every day and having our hours together talking. So we'll still go weeks with forgetting to do this. So this is more aspirational. But so I did do some somatic work, but honestly, the men's group that I just kind of finished some work with, we would start by taking several deep breaths, and we would feel, if we're sitting, our feet on the floor, we would feel what they call the sit bones, but basically your rear end on the chair, like really feel your body as it's sitting wherever it's sitting at the moment while you're doing some deep breaths. So I think just doing something as simple as that before you start your conversation together, saying, okay, let's close our eyes, take a couple deep breaths, deep belly breaths, and then also feel your feet on the floor, feel your butt on the chair, feel your back on the back of the couch, maybe, sense sounds around you. All that brings you into your body. And then once you get there, then like I said, the 2 words to say, okay, then you're really in your body and you're really feeling it. And quite frankly, that may be pretty enlightening for both people in the couple to just, or by yourself, you could even do this to really experience being in your body and what are you feeling in the moment versus waking up, grabbing your coffee and rushing into your day and being mental about all the stuff you have to do. Just, slowing down for yourself and for the relationship.
Yeah. So we do talk about this in the adult chair a lot about how you feel your emotions. I'm not sure if you've ever heard that podcast though, Graham.
So quite often I'll bring up a subject because I'll hear it on a podcast or in a men's group or something. I'll be like, Michelle, you've got to hear this is the greatest idea, concept, whatever. And then my wife does something she's not supposed to do. She rolls her eyes at me and then says, well, we've talked about that plenty on the Adult Chair podcast. So
for like the last 5 years, but hey, it's okay. I'm just glad you finally have caught up. So I'm glad. But no, I love that. I absolutely love this. And you're right about it's the slowing down. It's getting grounded. It's feeling the chair on your back and then getting really curious about what's down deep inside and then sharing that. And it's really vulnerable to do that. Correct?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. My thought on this is it's kind of like working out. If you don't work out and you want to start getting in shape, then even just going to the gym for 5 minutes a day, you do that for 30 days or whatever. And now you're a person that goes to the gym, even if it's just 5 minutes. And then when it becomes your identity, it's just, you can't help but do that. So I think that for couples, again, don't imagine this as sitting down for 2 hours because you're not going to do it. But even if you just sat down daily or every few days and for 5 minutes said, let's take the deep breaths, close your eyes, feel your body, and then just do like the 2-word check-in. I think what you'll find is some days you may do the 2-word check-in that might take 10 minutes. And that's nice. So you're connecting, you're hearing what the other person's up to and what they're feeling. But then some days you'll sit and you'll do that part of it. And then it'll lead into a conversation about something. And it could be a crucial conversation because it's on one of your minds and it's important to talk about. But yeah, I think again, what I want to make sure people don't understand, just because Michelle's the adult chair. So, everyone thinks she does everything perfectly. But as a couple, we don't do enough of this. And so we're not doing it perfectly either. But I think for anybody out there, and again, this could be a partner, a spouse, this could be a friend, it could be over Zoom, but just to take time to slow things down and even just for a few minutes, check in with the other person. Yeah, I think there's a huge connection that we're lacking in the world because we spend time on our phones and in front of TVs and rushing about. Probably even more important for like people with kids and all that are busy jobs, that just slow down even for 5 or 10 minutes with the person that's important to you.
So I want to point out too, if you are somebody that can't identify the emotion, even to say, I don't know what's going on, but my heart feels a little constricted, or I have knots in my stomach, that's a beautiful step toward identifying what the emotion is. And I would encourage you guys to even go to Google and print off a list of emotional words. Like, what are the emotion words? There's something called an emotional wheel. There's many things on Google. Print it off so then you can look at that chart and you can say, oh, wow, I think I'm feeling this. But if you can't identify it, just get the sense of what's going on in your body and share that.
And that's Michelle's enlightened version of things. As a guy that's not enlightened, let me tell you my version of it, which is don't go print off anything. Just ask your partner you can print off something. Michelle just gave me a look. So if you want to...
I just gave him an eye roll yet again.
If you want to print off a emotion wheel, go ahead. But for me, again, I was in a men's group with 12 guys. We don't know words for our emotions. We didn't have an emotion wheel. But just checking in among everybody. And it's what are the 2 words that describe how you're feeling right now? And it'll be the craziest words ever. I mean, it won't be stuff from an emotional wheel. It'll be, I'm pissed off. I don't know. But I just think for guys, it's easier to say, pick a couple words to describe versus what emotion are you feeling? You've lost, at least me. I don't know. I won't speak for the rest of the men or anybody else out there. But just start with hey, what are 2 words to describe how you're feeling right now? It'll be pissed off. It'll be scared. It'll be, I don't know. It could be a million different things, and they might not even be words that are real emotions. So, but I just think expressing that is easy for everybody, and it's a great opening to deeper conversations. And even if it ends after sharing those 2 words and a little bit about why you're feeling that way, that is a huge step forward for most busy people, most couples, et cetera.
I'm pulling out the emotion wheel for next week's coffee chat. I'm just letting you know.
I'm going to be so bummed when the emotion wheel comes out.
I'm pulling it out.
Yeah.
I've got it.
All right.
Anyway, thanks, Graham, for that.
Sure.
But I am all about expressing varied emotions. And I think that if we as humans had ideas about the range of emotions that we can feel, we would say more than I'm mad, sad, glad, afraid, or ashamed. I'm with Brene Brown on this one. I just got to say, we have so many emotions that we can feel, but we're not brought up to feel more emotions than those typical 5. So I will stand behind you with what you just said. Just go with something simple and basic in the beginning. But I think over time, it would be nice to expand out on what we feel. So
let's call that the emotional crawl, walk, run, go to the Olympics.
There you go.
If you know Michelle Chalfant, Michelle wants to go to the Olympics day 1. I, Graham Chalfant, went to crawl first. And if I can crawl, that's plenty for me. So I would just encourage everyone here, unless you're currently in the Olympics, that you start with the crawling, which is just breathing, feeling where you're sitting, and then sharing 2 words with the other person about how you're feeling. And I promise you, because I've seen it happen in men's groups, we're all crawling. Once you say the 2 words, you typically expand upon it. Like I said, it's once it opens up with the 2 words or 2 descriptions, then usually there's some explanation, because it's hard to say I'm anxious and then not say anything else. Usually then you want to say, here's why I'm worried about this, which frankly probably will lead to a lot of the great conversations that need to be had between people in relationship that maybe aren't being said because you don't slow down long enough to have them. Or, this is good. You ready? Here's a pet peeve of mine. Pet peeve is when I'm walking through the kitchen in the middle of something and Michelle tries to grab me and have an important conversation. Or 10:30 at night and my head's on the pillow and I'm falling asleep and she wants to talk about our finances. So maybe when we're doing coffee talk, she's looking exasperated. If you could see her right
More
now.
of an eye roll, because I haven't done that in like 10 years.
It's not eye rolling, it's exasperation right now.
Which would be an emotion.
So
there you go. You're
true.
Describing.
So
but you're more than the
one
top
of
5.
Michelle's 2 words right now would be exasperated.
Yes, I'm exasperated.
So yes, but I'm just making the example that as opposed to randomly grabbing a person you're in a relationship with and throwing out a deep conversation, when you make it a routine and you start out with a couple words, I think it's a lot easier to lead into some of the bigger conversations versus maybe grabbing someone out of the
Okay. Can you stop talking for 1 minute here?
You're having so much fun. I love these podcasts.
I've never heard you talk so much.
Well,
okay, wait.
Again, just
wait, I'm going to forget. I'm going to forget my questions. Go ahead.
I'm only allowed on every 50 to 100 podcasts. So when I do, I want to get my words in.
Okay. Thank you, Graham. I'm thinking about people that are listening to this saying, how do I get my husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whomever, partner, whatever it is, to whomever it is, to do this with me? What if they're not open to this?
Now I can talk. Good.
Go, Graham.
So I think it goes back to what I said. If you came to somebody you're in a relationship with that you'd like to have more conversations and more connection with, and you're not having those, to say, hey, can we do something cool I heard about on this podcast by this brilliant lady named Michelle Chalfant and this rather dull person named Graham Chalfant, would be, hey, can we just sit down, cup of coffee, whatever, and just share 2 words to describe how we're feeling? Would that be okay with you? Like, who wouldn't feel okay with sharing 2 words about like what's going on? Like, that sounds so easy and simple. And I think from the very first time, you'll probably get a lot more openness than you're expecting. But yeah, just start with a really simple request as opposed to, hey, I want to spend an hour with you on Saturday and talk about important stuff. You've just scared the crap out of me if you ask for that. But if you literally say, hey, can we just sit down for a few minutes and share 2 words to describe how we're feeling in the moment?
Can I add to that?
Sure.
What if you said, I like what you said, like, hey, how do you feel about sitting down on Saturday? We can put the kids in front of a movie, or the kids are going to be gone. Or if you don't have kids, then let's take time at 10 o'clock. Like, I really think we have to be specific about this and intentional. So, hey, at 10 o'clock, Saturday mornings, what do you think if we sit down and really just connect? I'd love to do this to make our relationship stronger. And we could share how we're feeling. Just kind of, it's like a check-in. How do you like that?
If you said that to me, I'd be a little bit scared. So
how can I less scare you?
I would just try, again, I'm speaking for me and maybe for some men, just keep it simple. Like, don't go too much with, I really want to connect with you. And I just say, hey, I really think it'd be fun to sit down. I heard about this on a podcast. We sit down.
I like that. I'd like to sit down with you.
And we'll take a couple deep breaths. We'll get centered maybe, and then just share a couple things about how we're feeling. Like, for me, it would just keep it really simple and let it expand more naturally versus coming in with this agenda of at 10 o'clock, we're going to sit down and we're going to
But I do think you have to figure out a time, because you know what you and I do. If we don't have an intention around this, it's not going to happen. So we'll say, hey, tomorrow, let's do our coffee chat. You know, it's Sunday morning. Let's meet at 9 a.m. So there has to be some intention with it, because you know what? People forget. People are going to get busy. And if it's triggering at all, we're going to say, yeah, no, I forgot about that. And there's a part of us that's going to come up and block it. So I'm going to challenge you on that, Graham Chalfant.
Well, you challenge me all you want. I just think to keep it light in the beginning is going to be more productive. So, hey, let's sit down and just share a couple words about how we're feeling.
How about we just say, let's just connect at 10 a.m. and just for a few minutes. And then when you sit down, you can talk about whatever. You guys know your partner that you're with. So
Go slow.
The key is to go slow.
Michelle's trying to go to the Olympics. I'm trying to crawl. Oh my God. I promise you, if you crawl just by asking for 2 words to describe how they're feeling, I think crawling will almost immediately lead to walking. Again, I don't think you can say your 2 words without expanding a little bit. And then you're having a little bit of a conversation. And if your person you're with is not one that shares a lot of emotions at all, I think you'll be a little surprised. And then that will lead to deeper conversations. And it just becomes, again, a ritual. But I think
it's a great starting point for sure for people, because we don't do this well as humans. We don't sit down and connect in this way. We will sit down and let me complain to you about the children, my job, my mother, my mother-in-law, whatever it might be, instead of just sitting and really tuning into the other person. And that's what this is about. It's about learning how to connect with your partner and making space, making time, being intentional about it is key to deepening that relationship. And by the way, staying connected. Because I can't tell you, as a therapist and a coach, how many clients I've worked with, they're like, yeah, I'm going to get a divorce. Well, why? What happened? Well, I haven't been happy in years. What? When you do this, this kind of thing, it prevents that from happening. When you make space and make time for that relationship is the third entity in this union that you have with somebody. You got to make time for that. It's so important. So I don't care if you make it simple or somewhere in between what Graham and I are saying, but you have to make time and share what's going on. And let me go to part 2 on this. What if when you're sharing or when I'm sharing, if I say something that, like, what if I say to you, you know what? I'm really upset right now. I'm really angry with you. This is going to happen with people, so we need to talk about that. What are you going to do, Graham, if I say to you, and not only that, I'm going to own this too. Like if you were to say to me, I'm really angry with you with how this went down this week, X, Y, and Z, that could be triggering for me. That could be very reactive. And from our healthy adult chair, we don't react, we respond. So that means I'm going to not come back and you go, what do you mean you're angry with me? What are you talking about? I didn't do that. That wasn't on me. These moments of connecting are about connecting and doing what I call masterful listening. It's really listening well without reaction. So you want to talk about that, Graham, from the beginner level?
I think we just went.
I'm in the Olympics.
I think we went to the Olympics again. I feel like I'm in Tokyo or wherever. So I agree. I'm just going to keep it simple, which is if I was in these connecting conversations and you're in the first week of doing this, the first time you've ever done this, I wouldn't bring up okay, give me 2 words to describe how you're feeling. I'm angry at you. Please go slow with this. Just start. If you've not been having these conversations, if you've not been sitting down with a spouse or a partner or a friend or whoever it might be, start off with just a couple words like I'm anxious and I'm relaxed or whatever it might be.
But what if they're angry?
I don't know what to say, except I would not, if you do the first time and the first time you do a 2-word check-in, your word to your spouse or friend, whoever is, I'm angry with you. That's not crawling. For me, crawling is start easy. Like if there's something big between you, don't start in the first conversation with the big thing.
That I'll agree with. I like that.
All right.
That I will agree with. But I'm going to say this. At some point, after doing this and getting each person comfortable with the process of just meeting once a week and connecting, at some point, if there's something inside that needs to be expressed, I might say to you, one of my words is actually anger. And I'm just going to say this. It's not about saying, you made me angry when, and raising my voice and changing my tone and saying, you did this. It's still about owning your experience and owning that emotion. So I need to say it in the right way, which I guess I get that it's advanced.
I'm just for this podcast.
But it's advanced. Can you just, it is advanced. But there's a way to say it. And we will do this as a part 2 podcast because that's really important too. And these are the critical conversations that have to get out. But in the beginning, the first few times of meeting, then this is where you're just meeting and you're sharing slowly.
I know. It's just, you went down. I totally agree with everything you're saying. You just went on a totally different wave. The wave here is for people that aren't having these conversations at all right now, which frankly is the majority of people in the world, including us not doing it enough. I'm just saying, let's go slow. Because if not, you're going to blow it up. It's kind of like saying, I'm not going to the gym at all. Now I'm going to go for 2 hours every day. That's going to last for about 3 days. And then you're not going to do the gym anymore. So I get what you're saying. And people do need to be present and exquisite listening and all that's fantastic. I'm just saying, for this podcast, takeaway is for the next couple weeks, every couple days, see if you can't sit down with the person in your life and just touch base with a couple words. Like, again, what are 2 words to describe how you're feeling? I just wouldn't recommend going to the gym for 2 hours. Eventually, you'll go to the gym for at least an hour. But in the beginning, it would be a huge improvement for most couples and people in relationships to touch base once a day or a couple times a week or whatever, just with, hey, with 2 words to describe.
I like the once a week, honestly, to start out, because doing it every day is like the Olympics to me, or even doing it a few times a week is the Olympics. But making a commitment once a week, like you and I try to do this on the weekends. Like I like the idea of doing it daily, but the weekends is much better for me and for you. And we tend to make that happen. We want to do it more during the week, but the weekends. So people can even commit to once a week to begin with and start there. But I'm just going to speak on this on my own because I do this, Graham, because I don't like your answers right now.
See, now I'm not to be back for like 200 episodes because of this one.
You're off the show. No, because there are people that have some things that they want to share with their person and they don't know how to say it. So when you start off, you do want to start off doing this, come up with, if you can just do it once a week, and we're not talking for 2 hours. Start out with the intention of meeting for 15 minutes and you can expand. Sometimes you and I have sat here for 3 hours. We have a lot going on. But I think what happens is we're getting in the habit of exchanging energy in this way, feeling so many beautiful things are happening. You're feeling safer with that person. You're learning about vulnerability and you're learning how to connect in a deeper way, which is so freaking powerful. So once you start talking about these things that are, yes, you know what? I feel this, and it's much lighter. The conversations, just because we're human, and if there is something we want to talk about, they're going to go deeper. You're going to eventually say, hey, I just want to share with you something that does make me uncomfortable when, or I did feel some anger when. And when you get to that point, it is about owning it as your own emotion. You do not want to say, you made me angry when you did this, and change your tone of voice, change how fast you're talking, and point your finger and say, you want to always own your experience. So I have been feeling some uncomfortableness or sadness or anger, whatever it is, when this happened. Can we talk about that? That is a much more open way of inviting in that other person to discuss it versus putting that person in defense. Make sense, Graham?
Yeah, no, everything you're saying makes sense.
So I'm just saying, as it goes on into the future, when you feel comfortable with your person and you're getting more into these critical conversations, these things absolutely do need to be shared. And if that person gets triggered, if they get mad, if they get up and walk away, it's okay. Your job as the person that's sharing is to be present and come back and say, babe, hold on. Let's slow everything down. This is just something I want to talk about. It's up for me. Please, can you just sit? I want to figure out a way to work around this. And by the way, I hope that both people are listening to this show today. If you're going to do this, if you're the person that's getting reactive, slow yourself down. Because you know what? No two people on the planet can get a relationship perfectly. It's difficult to do. And you've got to have these conversations. We're going to trigger each other. We're going to be angry sometimes. That's being human. You cannot avoid that. I will let you not go deep with me and talk about what to do when anger or something bigger comes up. But we are going to talk about this again, because I know that people are going to say, but wait, how do I share if I'm angry? How do I share if they made me mad? How do I share that they're making me uncomfortable? Whatever it might be. And I will agree that this is for a different conversation. So let's do another show on this next. It'll be our part 2 on connecting. But this 2-word check-in is such a beautiful way to just start that connection journey with your person. And I like when you were talking about, I don't remember if you just said it on the show just now or if you said it to me just in general, but talk just for a minute about how when you would just do in your men's group just the 2-word check-in and it would go into something deeper.
Yeah. So we would go around and everyone would, again, use 2 words. Sometimes it was 3 words. Sometimes it was 2 phrases, whatever it might be. But everybody in the group, could come up with 2 words to describe how they're feeling in the moment. And then inevitably, everyone would then spend a few more minutes kind of talking about those 2 words. So if it's like, I'm overwhelmed right now, well, they would give a little description why they're overwhelmed. They'd say, because my work is this, my family is this, my situation's this. And so everyone would give probably at least another 2 minutes minimally. And if that's all you do in your conversation with your person, your coffee talk, then that's great. I mean, you've made a connection, you've shared some, and you're starting to build the muscle for sharing with the other person how you're feeling. But I say inevitably, if you had 10 to 12 men that were all sharing for a couple minutes, one person would then end up spending 20 minutes. They would go much deeper and they would really go into the subject matter. And another person in the group might ask a question about it or might say, reinforce what they're saying. And so I just think that, again, this crawl, walk, run, go to the Olympics analogy we're using or metaphor is that It's just you're starting the process. And again, for the first several weeks, maybe the person you're talking with only gives you 2 words, and that's pretty much it. Like, that's okay. But I think that as they get more comfortable with this, then they'll expand to 5 minutes, and then it might become 20 minutes. And then from there, it might become a bigger conversation that you've been wanting to have that you haven't been able to have. Again, for me, it's very hard to go from 0 to having a super deep, intense conversation. But if I could have a lot of these in betweens where we're just sharing a couple words, again, it's a great way to start. Just like if you don't run or walk right now, walk up 2 mailboxes today and tomorrow and the next day, and then maybe you go 2 more mailboxes. It's the same thing with conversations and building connection if you haven't been doing it. And I think probably most couples do not spend enough time sitting together and connecting and just letting the other person know how they're doing. Now, what Michelle was getting into before is if the person says, I'm angry right now, and it's that they're angry at you, the only thing I'd say is this probably should not be a time to debate whether or not they should be angry. This is just letting them share. And so if you're able to just, sit with them and let them talk about it, that's going to do a lot more value or be a lot more valuable than this is not the time to debate things. It's just allowing them to share and to be heard.
So there's one word that I want to say that needs to be present during these conversations, which is safety. Would you agree, Chalfant, please?
I love I'm being called by my last name. Yeah, sure. No,
and then you're talking too much.
Well, like, I mean, in the men's group, there was a safety, right? I mean, we actually would set the intention before we'd start that this is not a place for judgment. Whatever, is said here stays here. So there was an implied safety. It's a little tougher in like a romantic relationship.
But I'm going to, if I may, share a few ways that how we can create that safety in the relationship during this time of check-in, which is, again, you don't jump in to fix it. You don't judge what that other person is feeling, what that emotion is, whatever is going on with them. You don't judge it. You are there as a witness to whatever that person is sharing. And it's just being present with them. And when you can be present when someone else is sharing and not jump in to fix it and not do whatever, anything at all when it comes to judging or fixing, then there is a sense of safety that starts to build in that relationship. And then that person is going to feel, or each of you will feel like you can share more and more and more. And again, take the relationship to a deeper level.
I love it. That's kind of the crawling and the walking and the running. So yeah, I do think that even just sitting together, facing each other or sitting next to each other on a couch and just sharing a couple words and a brief description of how you're feeling in the moment, that alone builds a sense of safety. I think that so many relationships don't have that, and it's a huge problem.
We fix it. It's like if you were to say to me, well, I just feel kind of off today or I feel sad, my response, if I say to you, oh, why? Why do you feel sad? I can't believe you feel sad. You have so many positive things in your life. And that's what we do as humans. We try to elevate that person out of their sadness. And instead, we just want to witness it and go, wow, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate you sharing what's going on with your reality. Now, something we can follow up on when that person is completely done sharing after their 1 minute or 20-minute check-in, you can say to them, thank you so much for sharing that. Is there anything that you would need from me? Is there anything I can do to help? That is powerful. Again, and it creates more safety in that relationship. It creates more of a bond in that relationship. But swooping in and fixing when someone feels bad is the worst thing that you can do in that for a relationship, including, I'm thinking about kids. If your kid comes home from school and says, oh, it's such a bad day. Oh, let me fix it. Let's go out for ice cream. It's like, no, tell me about it. Like, be present with someone that's having an emotion and sharing, but don't fix. Fixing sends the message that you're broken. Fixing is an unhealthy thing that we do with each other, and it does not work, does it, James Graham Chalfant?
It does not work. And then the other thing I would add is that in the men's group, probably the 2 most powerful things that were said, one would be when someone's usually talking about something that's pretty serious. Again, if they're going 20 minutes, it's something that's important to them. One would be one or many of the guys saying, we've got you.
And literally that was it. Not how can I fix it for you, but they just to know that they've got you. And then the other one was, just like Michelle just said, but among the guys, a guy would say, is there anything that this group can do for you? Is there anything we can do for you? You know, not trying to fix it, but making the offer that if there is something we can help with. And sometimes I think it would lead to a separate conversation, a different phone call for maybe one person to connect with that individual. But yeah, so I think just letting them know that you're there for them, and then asking if there's anything they can do for them, partner, the spouse, whatever, that's enough, right? And maybe you'll get asked to do something, but if not, just the other person is going to feel heard and they're going to feel supported. And gosh, I think what else do we want in relationships other than to be heard and supported, right?
Right, because it's so much of our childhood issues or wounding, whatever you want to call it, comes up, of course, with the person that we've attracted into our lives. And what little kid doesn't want to feel seen and heard, doesn't want to feel like they matter, doesn't want to feel like what they're saying is important, doesn't want to feel like they can sit in a safe space with another human being and have emotion. So when you are sitting with your person and you're creating that beautiful sacred space, oh my gosh, the connection that can happen is profound. Anything you want to add to that, Mr. Talker, today?
Hallelujah.
All right, you guys. Well, James Graham Chalfant, thank you. Thanks for being here and being the voice of many of the men, but even I know there are some women also that are just, we have a hard time with this. I know some once in a blue moon, I might react when you say something. But
I want to be the voice of those who crawl. So let's just remember that there are many out there like me that are not ready to have super in-depth, super emotional conversations, but everybody can crawl. So starting with the 2-word check-in, I think will make an immense improvement in many people's lives.
Oh, well, thank you.
Sure.
And remember what I said, this is a great thing to do with really anybody, whether you're in a relationship, a romantic relationship, but even do this with your kids, do this with anybody. So if you're someone that's single and not in a partnership, find your person, a friend, a family member, or multiple people, and do this because it is powerful and absolutely creates a deeper connection with that person.
I would say go try it today with anybody in your life. I think you'll find that a 2-word check-in is super non-threatening. Just to say, hey, right now, what are 2 words that would describe how you're feeling? I don't think anybody would be threatened by that. And again, you may be surprised by the reaction or the words you get.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate all your words of wisdom today around checking in an emotion. Who knew that you would ever be talking about feeling and emotion, Graham Chalfant?
Who knew?
All right, everybody. Thank you, Graham. And we will do a part 2 to this of when we take the conversation to, what do you want to call it, a different level. Like, I really do. We need to talk about what happens if you have a negative or more of a deeper emotion that comes up. So you guys, we're going to do a second podcast on that.
That'll be walking. And then eventually we'll get to running. And then maybe someday Graham will go to the Olympics.
All right, everybody.
And so we'll see you next time in the adult chair.
So annoying. All right, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed the show today. I keep hearing from you. You want more Graham. You want more Graham on the show. So this just might be happening because I know he and I had a conversation, I think it was a month or so ago he was on. So we might be hearing from him more, or you might be hearing from him more if that's what you're asking me. So from me. So, all right, you guys, have a beautiful day. And again, thank you for leaving the reviews wherever that you're listening to the show. I greatly appreciate them and I do read them. So love you all. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week, seated right here in the adult chair.